Shall we start, sir?
Yes, please.
Yes. Dr. Aishwarya will be presenting the case.
Sir, Dr. Ishita is presenting the first one.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Maria is the second.
Can you see the whole slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please start.
Good evening. My patient, a 43-year-old male, a tailor by occupation, resident of Wadala, Mumbai, presented with the chief complaint of diminution of vision in the right eye since 4 months. On elaboration, he revealed diminution of vision in the right eye was insidious in onset, progressive, painful, which was intermittent, associated with difficulty in seeing in bright light. History of pain and redness in the right eye, which started 1 year back and was treated medically with eye drops. There was a recurrence of similar episode after stopping the eye drops. He suffered thrice from such recurrences, and the last episode was 3 months back. All the episodes resolved with some topical medication. The topical medications were stopped 1 month back. There is no history of diplopia, polyopia, colored halos or floaters. There is no history of pain, redness, nausea, vomiting. No history of discharge, no history of trauma, no history of fever, chronic cough or weight loss, joint pain, backache or skin lesions, mouth ulcers, genital lesions or burning micturition. No history of ringing in the ears, hearing loss. No history of any ocular surgery, laser procedures. No history of diabetes, hypertension, tuberculosis, and no other significant medical or surgical history. Personal history, the patient takes a mixed diet. He is a non-smoker and non-alcoholic with no history of contact with pet animals. There is no similar complaints in the family members and no history of tuberculosis or diabetes mellitus in the family members. On general examination, the patient is well built and nourished, conscious and oriented, with normal vitals, and the CVS, CNS, and respiratory system were within normal limits. The distant vision, unaided distant vision in the right eye was 636 and left eye was 66. Best corrected visual acuity was 618 in the right eye and 66 in the left eye. Near vision was N8 with a plus 1 diopter lens and N6 with a plus 1 diopter lens in the left eye. On anterior segment examination, lids and in the right eye, lids and adnexa were normal, conjunctiva was normal, cornea showed multiple fine brown pigmented deposits on the endothelium and inferior half of the cornea, which was suggestive of keratic precipitates. The anterior chamber was quiet, iris was of normal color but with an altered pattern. Pupil was 4 mm, irregular, sluggishly reacting to light, with posterior synechium extending from 6 o'clock to 1 o'clock position. The lens had nuclear sclerosis grade 2 with posterior subcapital cataract. Anterior vitreous space was quiet and the fundus was within normal limits. In the left eye, lids and adnexa normal, conjunctiva was normal, cornea was normal in size, shape and transparent. Anterior chamber was quiet with an iris of normal color and depth. Anterior chamber of normal depth. Pupil was 4 mm, round, regular and reacting to light. The lens was clear, anterior vitreous space was quiet and fundus was within normal limits. This is a clinical picture. Would be right eye nuclear sclerosis with a posterior subcapital cataract, secondary to chronic anterior uveitis.
Stop my share. Okay. Sir, ma'am, you can go ahead with the questions.
Sir, do you want to start?
Yeah, ma'am. Ishita, can you go back to your slide? Can we
Yes,
see
sir.
the slides? you have taken quite a few. Can you tell me the importance of some of those? Can we see the screen, Sumit?
Yeah, just a minute, sir. Swapnesh sir, screen sharing.
Screen.
Which slide do you want me to go back to?
That she has taken history of so
So
many.
the negative history.
Just a minute.
You can start, but you have asked about history of photophobia, history of halos of light and pain, trauma.
Yes, sir. History of pain and photophobia. Sir, it is to rule out pain, redness, nausea, and vomiting is to rule out standard closure glaucoma, sir. This trauma is the cause for acute anterior uveitis. So we are ruling out trauma or any intraocular surgeries. Fever, chronic cough, and weight loss is to rule out tuberculosis. Joint pain, backache, and skin lesions to rule out ankylosing spondylitis and psoriatic uveitis. Yes, sir. And joint pain for ankylosing spondylitis, mouth ulcers, genital lesions, and burning micturition to rule out Behçet's disease. Ringing in ears and hearing loss are features of Vogt-Kienagi-Harada syndrome, sir.
So, in this particular, after seeing all everything in this case, what kind of systemic history you would expect? What is your diagnosis in this case?
Sir, it is a case of idiopathic chronic anterior uveitis, non-granulomatous.
Okay. Along with
The nuclear sclerosis and a posterior subcapsular cataract, a complicated cataract, sir.
okay. So depending on your diagnosis, what specific type of history you would expect the patient to
Sir, history of pain, redness, and blurring of vision, for which for a period.
I'm asking about history. Would you ask for something specific?
Yes, sir. Sir, recurrence of fetishal.
Would you be interested in lower back pain? Would you be interested?
Yes, sir, to rule out ankylosing spondylitis since it's a 43-year-old male.
Right. So what is the typical X-ray appearance of that spondylitis?
Sir, it is a bamboo spine. If on a sacroiliac X-ray, a bamboo spine is seen.
Okay, fine. And what other investigations you would like to do for this particular?
Sir, investigations will be to rule out all the HLA-B27 related uveitis. So HLA antigen screening. Then to rule out tuberculosis and sarcoidosis, you will get an X-ray done, and ACE enzyme levels, serum lysozyme levels, serum ALA levels, ANCA levels, and so.
You said you wanted to rule out tuberculosis, right? Would you like to do something for that?
Some Mantoux test and a quantiferon cold immunoglobulin assay.
Madam, if you have any questions, then we can come back.
Yeah, so Ishita, how would you go about managing this patient now?
Ma'am, since the patient has not been on topical medication since 1 month, and the eye is quiet at the moment. The patient can undergo a cataract surgery after another 2 month period of a quiet eye.
Okay.
And ma'am, for the cataract surgery, before it we just monitor the IOP and the inflammatory reaction. And before the cataract surgery, he should be started on topical steroids and topical NSAID for at least a week, followed by for the cataract surgery. First, we will have to perform a synechial lysis, followed by a phacoemulsification and IOL implantation.
Okay. Which type of IOL would you like to put in this patient, given that he has coexist uveitis, and why?
Ma'am, currently there is the heparin coated IOL can be used since it prevents adhesion of inflammatory cells on it, which is seen with other intraocular lenses, which causes pigmentary deposits on the IOL. So, ma'am, a heparin coated lens can be used, or an acrylic IOL will be used.
Okay, fine. And what complications would you expect post-operatively in this patient?
Ma'am, post-operatively, there can be a severe post-op inflammation, to prevent which we will have to start him on an aggressive treatment of steroids. To prevent a post-op cystoid macular edema from developing, he should be kept on a long-term period for topical NSAIDs. The patient may develop, ma'am, the patient may develop IOL pigment deposits on the eye and inflammatory cell deposits on the intraocular lens, for which he may require secondary surgery. And ma'am, chances of a posterior capsular opacification are also higher in these cases.
Okay. Now we talked about HLA-B27 uveitis. So how is HLA-B27 uveitis different from, say, an idiopathic? Why do you want to know whether this is HLA-B27 positive or not? Clinically, how are they different?
Ma'am, HLA-B27 uveitis is generally associated with a systemic illness, and
okay, so what about the uveitis? Are there certain typical features which might make you think that this could be an HLA-B27 positive? If you don't know, say no, because then we go on to the next question.
ma'am, I'm not sure.
Okay, so just mention some HLA-B27 positive uveitis that you know of.
Ma'am, ankylosing spondylitis, Riter's disease or reactive arthritis, psoriatic arthritis associated uveitis, and inflammatory bowel disease associated uveitis, that is ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease.
Okay. Can you tell me anything about some anterior uveitis syndromes?
Anterior uveitis syndromes, ma'am,
non-HLA-B27, of course.
Ma'am, there's Behçet syndrome, there's Vogt-Koyanagi-Harada syndrome.
Are they not HLA associated?
Ma'am, they are HLA associated.
Yeah, so non-HLA associated anterior uveitic syndromes. Do you know anything about Fuchs?
Yes, ma'am, Fuchs, heterochromic iridocyclitis.
Good. Any others? No. What's Amsler's sign?
Ma'am, Amsler's sign is a sign seen in Fuchs heterochromic iridocyclitis, in which on incision into the anterior chamber during surgery, there is chance of a hemorrhage or a hyphema developing, because there are vessels in the neovascularization at the angles, in the anterior chamber angle.
Gayatri?
Someone?
Yeah, this is Dr. Swapnesh.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to ask one basic question. Can I?
No, sure, please. Of course, I'm just asking with you. I would actually like to not ask my own.
No. So, where are the genes for HLA antigens located?
Sir, on chromosome 6, on the that's the MHC protein on genes chromosome 6.
What are the What are the two classes which are present?
Um, I don't know, sir.
You named
Sir,
quite a few diseases named on HLA
yes, sir.
associated with HLA, but you didn't specify which HLA. So for Behcet's, which is the HLA,
Sir, HLA-B51.
and BKH,
VKH is DR1 and DR4.
and sarcoid?
Sarcoid is not.
Okay. Anyways, yeah,
Should I ask? Are we done?
yeah, sure.
We have time.
We have time. We have time.
Okay.
5 minutes, sir. 8:10 we started. 8:25.
Yes, 5 minutes more.
Okay. So going back to Fuchs, heterochromic Ishina.
Yes.
Could you tell me its features of Fuchs?
Yes, ma'am. Fuchs heterochromic iridocyclitis has keratic precipitates which are stellate in shape, and they are diffusely distributed all over the endothelium, not localized to the inferior part. Fuchs heterochromic generally the affected eye is hypochromic due to stromal loss of iris stromal cells, and there is absence of posterior synechiae and Fuchs uveitis, and there is a presence of more chances of cataract developing.
And do they have any causative organism for Fuchs? Any organism related to the etiology of Fuchs at all? Not like definite, but
Ma'am, they are preceded by either rubella or rubella infection.
that's correct. Okay. And can you tell me something about? We still have time, Sumit?
Yes, ma'am. We do have.
Okay, we do have time. Could you tell me something about any other non-anterior uveitic syndrome, non-HLA related, or should I just ask you what's Kochner-Schlossman syndrome?
Kochner-Schlossman is a syndrome, ma'am, in which there are unilateral recurrent episodes of uveitis.
Okay, good. What else? Very characteristic feature of it.
Ma'am, I don't know.
Present increased IOP near to
Glaucomatocyclitic iritis, ma'am. It is known as glaucomatocyclitic iritis.
Okay, all right. Okay. I can't think of anything else to ask. So, want to ask anything?
Ishida, in this patient, what preoperative medication you would be giving?
So pre-operatively, we would like to start topical steroid drop, eye drop prednisolone acetate 1%, 4 times a day for at least 1 week, and a topical NSAID, either a Nepafenac eye drop 3 times a day for between 3 to 7 days before the surgery.
Would you consider something else? Have you severe subtenance injection of steroids?
Yes, sir. So, yes.
Consider doing that, especially since this patient has not been controlled, and if you have to take him off surgery, would you be?
Yes, sir. It can be given to prevent a later post-op spike of inflammation. So, a posterior subtenance or an inferior orbital floor injection can be given.
What steroid is used?
Sir, triamcinolone.
Yeah, correct.
Triamcinolone.
Correct. And intraoperatively, what difficulty you would expect in this patient?
Sir, intraoperatively, the pupil, there will be a small pupil because mydriasis is difficult, there can be chances of more hemorrhage and iris pigment.
Sorry, I didn't catch you. What hemorrhage you said?
Some more chances of bleeding, intraoperative bleeding and hemorrhage
From
from
which part?
from iris manipulation. And yes sir, and there can be increased amount of pigmentary release also because of the iris manipulation. um, uh,
So basically, you expect the iris to be floppy. Would you?
floppy iris, yes sir.
Fine.
What mechanisms, what would you like to do to manage that pupil? So what options do you have, right, from your non-surgical options to surgical options?
Ma'am, initially we will do a synechialysis followed by use of pupil expanders like an iris hook, which can be put through, four iris hooks can be put, or ma'am, currently BHEX ring are used as pupil expanders which can be used. And in surgically, ma'am, sphincterotomy can be done to increase the size of the pupil, ma'am.
Anything you can put in your Ingalactate or your BSS, a drug.
Ma'am, adrenaline can be put into the Ringalactate, ma'am.
I think we have to move on to the next case.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Dr. Aishwarya, can you see the slide?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you start presenting, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. My patient, a 61-year-old male, presented with loss of vision in his left eye since yesterday morning and became progressively worse to present. The patient described sensation of a curtain was coming over his affected eye and now affecting his central vision. In addition, 7 days ago, the patient noticed what he described as flashing lights followed by floaters which were persistent. The patient has no pain, no diplopia, no yellows, distorted vision or other symptoms. The patient gives a history of cataract surgery for his left eye 3 weeks ago. No other history of any surgery, trauma, amblyopia or strabismus. The patient gives a history of hypertension, well controlled on medication, and osteoarthritis. The surgical history of right knee replacement was done in the year 2005. He also gives past, he has no, in his family history, he has no history of retinal detachment, glaucoma or blindness in any member of the family. He is a non-smoker and he is not allergic to anything. On slit lamp examination, the best corrected visual acuity for the right eye is 6/9, and for the left eye is finger counting close to face. On the vision on visual on taking the vision, the PR was accurate in the right eye, and left eye it was defective in the superior quadrant. On the right eye, the lids were normal, conjunctiva was normal, cornea was clear, anterior chamber was deep and quiet, and the iris was normal. Pupil was normal in size and reacting to light. The lens had nuclear sclerosis cataract, and the anterior vitreous was normal, and the IOP in the right eye was 16 millimeters of mercury. In the left eye, the eyelids and adnexa were normal, the conjunctiva was normal, and cornea was clear. Anterior chamber was deep with vitreous strands at the pupillary plane. Iris was normal. The pupil was normal in size and reacting to light, and the lens was PCIOL with a posterior capsular tear. Anterior vitreous had pigmented cells in it, and IOP was 10 millimeters mercury of 10 millimeters of mercury. On dilated fundus examination, the right eye fundus had a clear view, this CD ratio of 0.3 with sharp optic disc margins, flat macula with normal foveal light reflex, and normal vessels and peripheral retina. The left eye showed a clear view, the CDR of 0.3 with sharp optic disc margins. There was large area of subretinal fluid extending from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock position with fluid under the macula. A horseshoe tear was also identified at 2 o'clock position, and there was small amount of vitreous hemorrhage noted at the site of the tear. This is the clinical picture, clinical fundus picture of the patient. So my probable diagnosis is a left eye fresh rhegmatogenous retinal detachment with primary break, a horseshoe shaped break at 2 o'clock position with PCIOL and a PCR in the left eye.
Okay. So, what is a possible cause of this pathology? Why this must have happened? Can your clinical examination point to a possibility why this must have happened?
Yes, sir. Actually, the patient is myopic, and the patient gives history of left eye cataract surgery just 3 weeks ago, and he has and in the surgery there was a PC tear also, so that had caused vitreous loss that may lead to the that may lead to the causation of a retinal detachment.
How?
By the proliferative vitreoretinopathy, there is vitreomacular traction by.
What is proliferative vitreoretinopathy? What is vitreomacular? And how will this cause this particular problem?
There is vitreoretinal traction, so the vitreous that was attached to the retina, which acts as a tamponade normally, it will act as it will pull onto the retina and may cause a retinal detachment.
So so there is a word for this particular thing. What is it? Is there a possibility that it caused the vitreous loss?
Yes, sir, vitreous loss. Yes.
Detachment, and
Yes, sir.
detachment was responsible for formation of horseshoe tear.
Yes, sir.
In your clinical examination, you did not mention something important in the examination of this eye as well as other eye. What did you not? What else would you like to look for in these patients? Their fundus examination. Would you like to look for some pre-existing lesion that might?
Yes, sir. We will look for the pre-existing lesions which may cause retinal degenerations, which may lead on to RDs like retinoschisis, degenerative retinoschisis, paving stone degenerations, then white with pressure.
Is degenerative retinoschisis a common retinal degeneration?
Yes, sir. It is usually seen in 10% case. 10% cases.
What patients usually work in here?
Sorry, sir.
Not that common. What is the most common peripheral retinal degeneration that is there, which can predispose to this particular problem?
So paving stone degeneration and lattice degeneration.
Is lattice more common or degenerative retinoschisis is more common?
Lattice is more common, sir.
How much of normal population has lattice degeneration?
40% patients, myopes, have lattice degeneration.
% of patients with retinal detachment have lattice degeneration, and in general
Yes.
population it is about 8%.
8%.
Yeah. Now, when you have examined this patient, you are going to what is going to be your plan of action now for this particular patient?
Sir, the patient is actually symptomatic, and it's a symptomatic, acutely symptomatic RD extending for more than 2.
The patient was not symptomatic, and it was seen on a routine fundus examination. Would you leave it alone?
No, sir, because the retinal tear and the subretinal fluid extends for more than 2 clock hours, and so we will have to take the patient for surgery, scleral buckling, or pneumatic retinopexy, or and or silicone oil.
Pneumatic retinopexy and silicone oil are part of same procedure? Are they done in same procedure?
No, sir.
No. Then
Pneumatic.
what do you do before injection of silicone oil?
Sorry, sir.
Silicone oil injection, is it
Yes,
done
sir.
in isolation? Do you just inject silicone oil or do something before that?
Sir, we do drainage aspiration, then
Let me ask you a straightforward question. What are the treatment modalities for rheumatogenic retinal detachment?
yes, sir. Sir, we can take up the patient for pneumatic retinopexy. Then we can do scleral buckling. Then we can do the drainage of the SRF fluid, and then we can also
Aishwarya,
yes, sir.
is there something called as vitrectomy which is done?
Yes, sir. We pars plana vitrectomy can be done, sir.
So where is that in your answer? Where is vitrectomy? In this particular patient, would you consider doing pneumatic retinopexy? What are the indications for pneumatic retinopexy? You are not sure.
Sir, when the retinal detachment extends for less than 2 clock hours and in the upper 2/3 of the retina, then we take the patient for pneumatic retinopexy.
Okay. So in this particular patient, would you consider doing pneumatic retinopexy?
No, sir.
Why?
Because the
break is superior.
yes, sir, and
It's at around 2 o'clock position.
yes, sir.
So theoretically, you can. Okay. But it may not be a good choice because the posterior capsule is not intact.
Intact.
So it may not be a good choice in that sense. So what is a primary mode of treatment for pseudophakic retinal detachments? Now, in current era, what is the most commonly done surgery for pseudophakic retinal detachment?
Pseudophakic retinal detachment. So pars plana vitrectomy is done for pseudophakic retinal detachment with scleral buckling.
Okay. In this particular patient, would scleral buckling be required or not required? And if yes, why? If no, why?
Yes, sir, the scleral buckle will be required as
See, the break is in superior quadrant. So generally in superior quadrant, we don't have to put encircling band. So putting encircling band may be a good option, especially in superior break, because then it gives support at the vitreous base.
yes, sir.
So if it's a superior break, it's not absolutely necessary. You can get away by doing without putting the scleral buckle. You can just do pars plana vitrectomy.
Yes.
For pars plana vitrectomy, how many ports do you make?
So there is an illumination port and there is an irrigation port and illumination port and irrigation port and a port from where the vitreous
How
cutter is
many?
in. So total 3.
Okay. And what in pseudophakic patient, what is the distance from limbus at which you make the incisions?
In pseudophakic patients, it is 3.5 mm and
Phakic patient,
4 mm.
it's usually 3 and 4. That's fine. Yeah, madam, any questions? I think.
What gauge is the when you're doing a vitrectomy? What gauge do you use?
Ma'am, usually 20 gauge was used, but now for the transconjunctival microincision, various gauges like 25 and 27 gauges with vitrectomy cutter are also available.
Okay. Okay. Now let's just go back to basics. How would you define? How do you differentiate a retinal dialysis from a giant retinal tear?
Retinal dialysis.
So what is
Ma'am,
the key difference between the two?
Ma'am, in the dialysis, the vitreous base is attached to the posterior margin of the tear, and in a giant retinal tear, the vitreous is attached to the anterior margin of the tear.
So which one has a PVD? Which one doesn't have a PVD?
The giant retinal tear has does not have a PVD, and no, ma'am, dialysis does not have a PVD, and giant retinal tear has a PVD.
Okay, fine. All right. What typically when you're seeing a patient who comes to you with floaters, what specific signs do you want to look for, and what do you want to do, and what warning do you want to give the patient?
In any patient coming with floaters, there is a chance of vitreoretinal traction, so they are more predisposed to retinal detachment. So we'll tell the patient that if his floaters come on to the if he sees floaters, if his floaters increase or they come onto the central vision, to generally visit the ophthalmologist urgently.
What sign on slit lamp do you want to look out for? What two things do you want to look out for in a patient with floaters and myopia, say?
Ma'am, tobacco dusting in the anterior vitreous, and
Why do you
then
need tobacco dust?
ma'am, because if there is a tear, the macrophages engulfed pigment will come into the anterior chamber, and that we'll see on the slit lamp as a tobacco dusting.
Do you see tobacco dust in the anterior chamber? Where do you see
Anterior face of the vitreous.
Oh, okay, fine. And what other thing do you want to look for? One more sign that clinically will make you want to then do an IO with, very careful.
Yes, ma'am, the IOP will be lower in the eye.
What other fundus sign will you see which will make you want to do a good indirect on this? Heard of any ring?
Sorry, ma'am.
Any ring? Any ring?
Anything you've heard of?
Yes, ma'am. The patient complained of Weiss ring.
Darling, you see the Weiss ring.
Ma'am, it is the attachment of the vitreous around the optic disc. So if it is present, PVD is present.
Okay.
Last 2 minutes. Last 2 minutes.
You talked about retinoschisis in the beginning. How would you differentiate a retinoschisis from a retinal detachment?
Ma'am, clinically, when the patient presents to us retinoschisis, he will not complain of any photopsia and floaters, as there is no vitreomacular traction, and then visual field defects in the retinoschisis will be an absolute scotoma, which is a relative scotoma in the rhegmatogenous RD. And on examination, retinoschisis will be convex, smooth, and thin and immobile, localized in appearance. And rhegmatogenous RD will be convex, but it will be slightly corrugated and opaque. And
which quadrant do you generally see schisis in?
Ma'am, schisis in inferotemporal, and RD in superiotemporal.
RD can be anywhere, dear. You know anything about Linkoff's rules?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, these rules, they help us in the localization of the primary break depending upon the level of the SRF fluid. So if it states, there were 6 rules that were given by Linkoff, and it stated that if the primary...
Anyone?
if the primary break is at 6 o'clock position, there will be an inferior RD with equal fluid levels in both the sides.
You picked up the easiest one, huh? Okay, I'm done. If, Dr. Sapnesh.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Manish sir, anything else you want to ask?
No, that's fine.
Okay. I have one last question.
Thank you. ma'am.
You did well. What are the layers of the retina? And that would be the
Yes,
last.
sir. It is it starts from the outer to the inner. Retinal pigmented epithelium, then layer of rods and cones, then external limiting membrane, then the outer nuclear, outer plexiform, inner nuclear, inner plexiform, then ganglion cell layer, then the nerve fiber layer, then the inner limiting membrane.
Okay. Drink a glass of water.
Thank you.
Okay. We move on to the OSCEs immediately.
So I will go to the OSCEs. Noting down the marks. Thank you to everyone for helping in making this OSCE. Ma'am, who will answer the first question?
Let's start with Suvarna.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Suvarna, you are ready?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the first question is this. Identify the type of contact lens in the image.
So it's a scleral fixated contact lens.
Name at least 2 ocular condition in which this kind of lens can be used.
Keratoconus and
Okay. Ma'am, anyone else we should ask? You want to pass on for Dr. Srishti?
Yes, sir.
Conditions like contact lenses.
So,
2 ocular condition.
yeah, ocular condition in which the scleral contact lenses can be used.
Sir, keratoconus and peripheral ulcerative keratitis.
See, what is happening? We are getting echo of your sound. So either you use headphones, but what is happening since you are sitting close to each other, we are getting echo of the sound. That is the problem. Okay. So, ma'am, one question answered, one question answered half. How many marks we should give?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
She answered the A part correctly. B
Yeah,
part
so
she
half.
answered only half. So
7,
7.5.
7 is fine.
7.5, ma'am.
Okay.
Who will answer the next?
Ishita?
Ishita?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This was for you. Identify the lesion and the diagnosis of the disease patient suffering from.
leash nodule.
Leash nodule.
Half a minute.
Leash nodule type 1.
Neurofibrosis type 1. Okay. Diagnostic criteria for the same.
Yes, sir. The leash nodule.
Yeah.
Diagnostic
Diagnostic
criteria.
criteria for neurofibrosis. I request all 4 of you again not to sit in the same room because it is
They are not.
creating a lot of noise in the recording. And we cannot hear you clearly.
I think for 5. Why don't we ask them to unmute only when they're answering to mute?
So it's difficult to do that very fast.
Okay.
Okay, last half a minute for this answer. Diagnostic criteria of neurofibromatosis.
If you don't know, get
I
ahead.
don't know, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Sumit, I think fast.
Yeah, we'll answer this for all of them.
That is the diagnostic criteria.
This is the diagnostic criteria. So, this 6 or more
Take a photo.
spots, plexiform neurofibroma, inguinal or axial freckling, leash nodules, optic glioma, sphenoid dysplasia, and family history. So,
If
diagnosis is
you,
at least 2 of the 7.
if you have the Oxford handbook, the neurofibromatosis type 1, type 2, everything is given very well, and so is the diagnostic criteria. So if you all have it, please refer.
Next.
Yeah, next. So, who will answer next, ma'am?
Aishwarya has to answer, right?
Yes,
Aishwarya?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, right. 15-year-old boy comes with the complaint of a double vision in the left eye. What is your diagnosis? And what systemic clinical examination you will do in this patient? 3 signs minimum. The ocular diagnosis is?
There is ectopia lentis,
Perfect.
and the lens is subluxated superotemporally.
That's
So
okay. Ectopia lentis is accepted. Now tell clinically what will you examine in this patient? Other than eye.
So what patient will you see this in? So what examination will you want to do?
It is usually seen in patients with Marfan syndrome.
So what examination would you want to do?
The patient will have arachidactyly, and he will have a more increased upper limb and upper segment and the lower segment ratio, and he will also have heart defects. So cardio assessment is also important.
Anything in his oral cavity?
Higher.
Ma'am, I don't know.
Oral cavity.
Yes,
Okay. Try and answer the second. What are the options for the intraocular lens placement? Like you do a lens removal in this patient. What IOL you will put in this patient?
30 seconds.
You want to pass on? Anyone else?
Pass on.
On to someone else. Suvarna?
Scleral fixated IOL or anterior chamber IOL.
Okay, next.
Next is Srushti. Srushti is next.
Okay. So how many marks to be given
5,
for?
I would say.
5. Okay.
I mean for Aishwarya. Suvarna answer the second one, but I think 5.
Okay.
If that's okay with
Yeah. So these are some signs that you need to see in Marfan's. Wrist sign, thumb sign, which is known as Walker-Murdoch sign, Steinberg sign, arachnodactyly, and of course what you said, kyphosis, scoliosis, and the rest of the books. Who will answer the next question, ma'am? Srushti. So Dr. Srushti, this is for you.
Yes, sir.
This is a fundus picture and FFA picture. Most probable diagnosis of this lesion and a cause for the same.
Sir, it's a choroidal neovascular membrane.
Okay. Cause?
Manish sir, you want to ask any leading questions?
This is starts with animals.
Yeah, what does it look like? Have you seen this in any type of sport? This kind of, like in archery, do you use something in there?
Bullseye. Bullseye maculopathy, sir.
Correct. Correct. And what is it's a hot drug right now.
Ethambutol toxicity, sir.
What?
Srushti. It's a hot drug right now. That's a big enough hint.
We use it for COVID nowadays.
I request the attendees not to please type answers in the chat. Please don't type answers in the chat.
What drug?
Hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah, correct. And what are the other indications for hydroxychloroquine? What are the indications for hydroxychloroquine other than COVID? But the next one is for positive drug.
Malaria.
Ishita
Ma'am, anti-malarial.
and
Rheumatoid arthritis.
okay, and
Safe dose.
safe dose.
Last 15 seconds.
Chloroquine 25 milligram.
What is safe dose? How many milligrams per day?
15.
Varna, please don't prompt.
Sorry.
Anyways, pass.
Pass. Aishwarya?
Sumit, next slide, please. We are running out of time.
Yeah, Manish sir, how many marks for this?
I think 5 is good. You can give 5.
Save this 300 milligram for chloroquine. Okay, we'll go ahead. Who is the next person who will answer, ma'am?
Ishita again. I think Ishita say will start.
Yes.
Ishita, so classify drusen according to the size and mention the classical OCT feature of drusen on macula.
The drusen is divided into small drusens are less than 60, medium are from 60, intermediate are 63 to 125, and large or short drusen are more than 125 micrometer in size. They are seen as a hyper reflective elevated lesions under the artery between the artery and the Brooks membrane on the OCT.
And second is what is AREDS?
It is a age-related eye disease study, which talks about the antioxidant and multivitamin supplementation to be given to prevent the development of age-related macular degeneration. Second, ARES2 modified the amount of zinc and from 80 milligram, which was given earlier, to 25 milligrams to reduce the genitourinary complications it caused. And other than that, it includes lutein, zeaxanthin, copper, vitamin E, and vitamin C.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. How many marks for her for this?
I think sir, I would.
Manish sir?
She deserves full marks.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Can we go to Suvarna next?
Yeah. So Dr. Suvarna, this is for you.
Yes.
So this is a fundus picture of right eye and the left eye. Describe the fundus picture. The lesion, even you can identify, that is fine. What is right eye and left eye showing? Optic disc specifically.
Yes, sir. In right eye, there is optic atrophy, pale disc. So it's a optic atrophy with other eye having a blurred margins of disc. So it's a papillary edema.
Okay. Identify the syndrome in which you will.
The syndrome is a Foster-Kennedy syndrome.
Okay. That goes well. Next person who will answer?
Next is Shrishti. Shrishti now.
Shrishti?
Yes, sir.
Question for you. So we just discussed about this. What is PVR? Mention the silicon study classification of PVR.
Okay, second question, we can ask Manish sir to ask a impromptu question, because that already has been discussed.
It's been done, yeah.
PVR is proliferative vitreoretinopathy. Proliferative vitreoretinopathy is divided into 3 grades. Grade 1, the retinal neovascular is limited to the vitreous phase.
Anyone else?
Do you know the classification? Or you can...
If you don't know, say you don't know, move on to the next person. Aishwarya?
Yes, ma'am. The PVR classification is divided into grade A, that is minimal PVR. It is characterized by diffuse vitreal haze and tobacco dust, and there are pigment clumps in the inferior surface of the retina. And grade B is moderate PVR, that is characterized by the wrinkling of the inner retinal surface. And then grade C is marked, that is characterized by rigid full thickness retinal folds. It is also called as star shaped, and there's vitreous condensation of these strands. And Then there is advanced disease that consists of a triangular like configuration, so which is shown in this picture.
Time up.
According to
Sir,
there are
how many? Yeah.
classifications. There are 2 classifications, so they are very specific questions. Silicon study classification. In silicon study, it is ABC, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and in C, you just said that it is full thickness folds. That is correct. But is there anything else that you want to talk about in that?
Funnel shaped RD.
Sorry,
Funnel shaped RD.
it is divided into anterior. If it is anterior, posterior, and clock hours 1 to 12, depending on the depending on the number of clock hours which have this thick fixed retinal fluids and retinal. If there is a patient, correct. So if there is a patient, the second question is what is your treatment of choice in a patient who is having retinal detachment? Yeah.
Srishti, this is for you.
Want to answer that or you want to pass it on?
Suvarna, Aishwarya, if you don't know, pass it on to Suvarna, please.
Ma'am, I don't know.
Suvarna?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, there is a pars delineation vitrectomy with siliconine tampon.
Answer is pars plana vitrectomy and not usually scleral buckle doesn't work in this.
Yes.
It's pars plana vitrectomy.
Pars plana vitrectomy.
Sir, how many marks for the question?
5.
Okay.
She answered the classification.
Okay, fine. We go. Next is
Next, let's go with Suvarna again.
yeah, Dr. Suvarna, this is for you. Name the diagnostic test and what is it used for?
This is contrast sensitivity test.
Yeah, the name of this chart specifically which you are showing. It is used for contrast sensitivity, correct? The chart is called as?
Go on to the next question if you don't know, and if you don't know, pass on to the next person, which is Ishita.
Don't remember.
Next question.
In the other chart that can be used to check the contrast sensitivity, please.
Same, any contrast sensitivity.
Anyone else other than Suvarna?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Pelly Robinson chart.
Pelly
Correct.
Robinson.
This is Pelly Robertson, what we are showing. Anything else than this?
California
Visted
grading
chart.
system.
One by one, please. Aishwarya, go ahead.
California grading system is also used to check for the contrast sensitivity.
Correct.
Moving quickly.
Yeah,
Next.
fine.
Ishita.
Yes, ma'am.
So 5 for this and we'll go ahead.
Yeah. 5 for this, and we go ahead.
Next is
Ishita.
Ishita.
Yes, ma'am.
Ishita, this is for you. We come across this kind of a picture when we are doing pre-operative cataract surgery workup. Name the instrument in which we see this specifically.
So this is a keratometer.
Okay, which keratometer?
So Boston long.
Perfect. Range of the measurable diopters in the Boston keratometer. Minimum and maximum.
So 39 to 52.
The upper range is correct. Lower is 36.
36.
36.
So 5 for this or 7.5, ma'am?
7.5, I think.
Okay.
Let's go to Srishti now.
Srishti, the last question is for you. So you have this 58-year-old female, complaints of night blindness and progressive loss of field of vision. Identify the field defects first seen in the perimetry.
So it's a central field of vision denoting tunnel vision.
Yeah.
The most common cause of it is advanced glaucoma.
Okay.
In the fundus picture, we can see retinitis pigmentosa.
Perfect. So yeah, so advanced cases RP, this is showing a tubular vision. In this case, most common cause is advanced glaucoma. Correct. Okay. I am done, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I think
Swapnil,
that would
Yeah. There's one bonus question. Can you see the screen? Okay.
yes, sir.
Identify the instrument. You have to do it today.
Today particularly.
You will get some brownie points if you identify.
So flex loop.
sir,
Acha,
hint द्या.
what is it being used for? It's a vitreoretina instrument.
Yes.
Which is
So it's a
named,
finesse flex loop.
Finish.
no, it is named after one of the very prominent vitreoretinal surgeons in India. What is it used for? Can you at least, that's in the
It's seen in the
Elevation of the PR.
Okay, I'll give out the answer because we have run out of time. It's the claw. It's Dr. Bapa's instrument. It's a foreign body forceps which is used to pick up even large irregular foreign bodies from the eye. And Dr. Bapa has won multiple awards for this particular innovation. So just 2 lines on this. Bapa sir, please say some 2 lines on this.
Yeah, so basically this is a instrument that has retractable prongs. You know, you can completely retract them in the metallic cylinder that you see, and then you put it through the sclerotomy inside the eye, and then extend the prongs so that they can you can grab a large foreign body. Very useful for non-metallic objects, because metallic, even large foreign bodies, can be picked up using intraocular magnets. But with this, you can pick up large non-magnetic objects also. And this was used very widely in Kashmir in 2016. When there was pellet injuries, the surgeons operating there, and Dr. Natarajan was one of them. Yeah, they had a lot of difficulty removing the pellets, but once they started using this forceps, it was quite helpful. So it has been of benefit, and I'm very happy that it has been of benefit at a national level.
On that proud note, we come to the end of this particular session of examination. Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Bapai sir, and thank you, Gayatri madam, for your active participation. And I hope we did some justice and some help to your students.
No, of course, a lot of help. Thank you very much, and thank you, Sumit and Dr. Swapnish, for organizing this whole thing. I think it's helpful for all students, and I hope that the students keep attending it through the whole, session, and not just for their individual colleges. So I think it would be more helpful for them. They'll see more OSCEs like that and cases. So.
Sumit, just announce next session and then we conclude.
Yeah, so today's OSCE score was 70, and the practical marks will be told later. So we have a next session on the Friday 8:30 we'll start, and that will it's by the Nair Medical College. So we'll be seeing Nair presenting on the Friday.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.